So hi again. In this video we'll go over a couple of the tutorials and show you how to visually edit your GUIs. These are the links that the installer created for us, and this is the tutorials folder in the main Gui4CLI folder. We could work with this, but we cannot save the GUIs because this needs administrator privileges because the tutorials are inside the program files directory folder where Gui4CLI is, and Windows will not allow you to save there unless you're running an administrator privileges. So what we'll do is close this and go to the main uh, directory here and take the tutorials folder, copy it, and paste it on the desktop. Now there's a copy of the tutorials GUI here, so we can just run this one instead. And it's the same thing as you would get with this. But now we can change the GUIs and save the changes. So this folder contains the GUIs, the tutorial GUIs in order of difficulty from easy to hard. And when you click it, the code will come here, will be shown in the editor, and when you double click it, it will be run. So the first GUI is the easiest one. So let's go through that. The first thing you have to have is this G4C marker. This is what Gui4CLI, when loading a script, this is what we'll look for, and if it doesn't find this, it will not run the GUI. And then there's the name of the GUI. This is important because you use this in order to refer to it from other GUIs if you want to call subroutines in this one or open it, close it, handle it in any way. Then come the events and their commands. There's three types of events: a window, which is by itself and it doesn't do anything else than provide a window. And then there's non-visual events, which happen when something happens, like in this case, loading or closing of the GUI. And there's visual events, which are like buttons, list views, tree views, things like that. The visual events, like window and all the visual events, they have four numbers here, which are left, top position in the desktop, and width and height of the window. In this case, the window of the GUI, and in this case, the button, the size of the button. Now, these may look daunting in the beginning, but you don't have to worry about them. You can adjust them visually. Now, let's just show you the workings of the GUI. What happens here is we define a window, my first GUI, and then on loading, we tell it to open itself. The this refers to this GUI. It's a shortcut to refer to this GUI. We could have put here the GUI's name instead. It's the same thing. And then on closing, in other words, when we press the close button in the window, then it will quit itself. If we didn't tell it to quit itself, the GUI would remain in memory and would do nothing unless it's called from somewhere else. Now, these visual events and the commands, you don't have to remember their templates. If you go onto the event and you click on it and you press the F1 key, it will give you the template. This window, for example, accepts left, top, width, height, the positions, the way we said we can edit afterwards, and then the title. This command here, GUI open, expects, if we press the F1 key, expects the GUI name and arguments if you pass arguments, and so on. If you press F2, it will open the help file to show you more detailed explanation on these things, like window, for example. If we press F2, it will open the help file in the window explanation, and you can hear the list of you can see here the list of attributes that you can add and everything else. If we go here X on load, it will open the definition for all the X on load, X on close, X on quit commands. If we go to button, it will press F2. It will tell you about button, the styles you can use, and everything else about it, and it will give you an example of how to run it. So let's go to the second one. This is three buttons, a big improvement. But this GUI, the thing is that it will resize the gadgets as you resize the window. Now let's see how this is done. We have the same heading always, and then in the window event here, we have a one attribute style resize. There's also this all gray, which doesn't do anything on Windows 10. It used to do on when we used to make the background of the window gray on Windows XP and 7, I think, but it no longer works. So the resize attribute is what makes the window resizable. Now, when the window is resized, we see that the buttons will resize too. We do that by declaring resize attributes here. Uh, this attribute takes four numbers, which are usually 0 or 2. 0 means don't move anything. There's also 1, which means to move analogically, but this is not very useful. It's rarely useful, in other words. And 2, it tells it to move as much as the window is resized. So in this case, the first button, we didn't have to give this resize attribute because all we're telling it is don't do anything, which is what it would do anyway. It wouldn't move at all. On the second one, we tell it to leave the left and top alone, and then resize the width and height. And this is what it does. It resizes width and height. And on the third button, we tell it to resize the left and the top, and leave the size, width, and height alone. And this is what it does right here. Sorry. Now, in order to visually edit your GUI so they look good, we don't have to adjust these. We can do it visually as follows. You go on over the gadget and you press Control right click. And then that selects the gadget and you can move it around. If you press the space bar, then it changes to resizing. And you can resize it and press the space bar again and you can move it and resize it and move it. So this is how you do it. You go here and you just left click and leave it at this new position. So let's just resize it to size like this and leave it there. Then we pick up this, control right click, and we put it here, for example, and then resize it and put it here. Now we have this. Now we don't want this area of the window, so we have to resize the window. But if we try to do it like this, these have been told to resize and this will be moving. So in order for them not to move, the gadgets not to move, so we can resize the window to the size we wanted, we press Control and do the resizing in the window. And now we can resize it anywhere you want. Now, you have this in how you want it. This is beautiful and we like this. So now we press Control S and it will ask you, do you want to proceed and save the GUI in these new positions? You say yes. Now, because we have the GUI loaded in the editor, it will understand that something has changed and it will tell you, do you want to reload it? We do. So now if you go through, you'll see that these numbers here, the window and the buttons have changed. They're now the new positions here. And if we close this GUI and then restart it again, we'll see that it will open in the new window position with the gadgets in the new positions. Now, if you want to add new gadgets, you can do this manually by having the definitions here. For example, you can add another button here or list view or whatever, but there's an easier way too. There is a helper GUI here. Let's go to Tools, open Control Bank GUI. This is just a GUI that shows you all the events, the visual events you can use, well, most of them anyway. And what you can do is, let's resize the window so that it fits something more. And let's pick up here the tree view, for example, and we control right click to select it. Now we can move it within here, but we can also drag it to the next window. Just drag it here and we just put it here. And then it's not showing anything now because it's not initialized yet. When we restart the GUI, it will initialize. Then we control right click and we resize it to this size. And then let's just put something more. Let's put a track bar, for example. We'll put it down here. Well, and then control right click and resize it this size. So we like this. And we say we want to save this. So Control, save. Yes. And we do want to reload it. Close this. Now, what it's done, it's added two gadgets here. It's added only the definitions. It will not add the commands or the attributes of this gadget. You have to add them yourself afterwards. But it has added the two gadgets and the sizes you want. So if we close this now and we reopen it, we'll see the new gadgets are there. Also, the tree view has initialized itself and it shows us our computer, and it also shows us the assigns which we talked to in the installation. So one thing I forgot to mention is that you can drag and drop gadgets from any GUI, not just for the control bank GUI. That's just a helpful GUI to show you all the gadgets that are available. But you can also do it within the same window. Let's resize this, make it a little bigger with control and resize, and then we can just take this right click and go here, and while it's selected we can press the C button and it will clone itself. We can do this and clone another one, etc. This is also another way that you can do it. It's good to go through all the GUIs here in order of difficulty and understand how they work and change them in any way you want. This is the best way to learn how to use them. For example, the window shape will just create a GUI on the fly and give it a region so that it is a part of it becomes transparent. It has a menu quit. You have timer progress, which is shows you how the timers work. Mouse cursor shows you how you can change how to understand where your cursor is. Um, how to change cursors here when hovering over various things. You have multi-column tree views, which are very helpful. You can use them as databases even. I do. You can have owner-drawn list views with which you can have very colorful fields, and you can have most gadgets inside the list view. For example, this is an image, and these are buttons, and these are radios, and things like that. You can have fancy text, which is like color text and stuff, and a directory tree view, which is like GC view we saw before. Now, one thing to note from here is that if let's load a GUI here, a color calculator, this calculator, which works perfectly, okay. So the source code of the GUI is loaded automatically here, and you can go through it and see how it works. Now, if you want to find one of these gadgets where it is, you don't have to search for it in the GUI. What you can do is control right click on it as if you're going to be moving it, as if you're going to be editing it. And then while it's selected, you can press E. And then it will go to the place where this event is declared. This text for example, is this number 5 character. So what else? As you go down, the GUIs will get more difficult as you go. Here's an is wizard for installing things. It will not do anything, but it shows you how it works with different pages so that you can have a progression. And here, for example, is an MP3 player, which you can use to play music. There's a more involved one in GC View, which I use. Let's play some music. If you go here, for example, music here, I had one file. We can add it here. We can drag it and drop it here and tell it to. Sorry, this one uses the MCI, which is inside Windows. It's a function of Windows in order to play various things. MCI, you can play videos with it, you can play audio with it, you can do a lot of things with it, and it's useful to learn how to do it. Here, if we can see, for example, MCI close sound. There's an interface for MCI to use it from within GUI for CLI, which makes it quite easy. And there is an extensive, what do you call it, command set that you can use to play videos and sound. You can also use FFmpeg, which I use to convert videos and things like that. As you go down, these last four are written by users, and they use external DLLs. For example, this one, it uses a DLL called G4C Progress. If we go to the main GUI for CLI directory, if we go here, for example, and go here and go to the DLL directory, we will find this G4C Progress here. G4C Progress DLL. This DLL here uh, has has extended GUI for CLI with various commands and events, and these are called by the DLL name and then the command involved and the template of the command. This particular GUI is a resource monitor, and it tells you what the system is doing, like the CPU speed, the memory, and everything like this. Very nicely done. I don't remember who did it right now. Ah, Jack Van Mook. So now, one more thing. Let's open this a tabbed browser like Chrome, for example. And we want to go to this address, the GUI for CLI page. It didn't do it because it wants a window to open first, a new tab, and then it will show you the desktop like this. But we wanted to go to guiforcli.org, guiforcli.org, and this is it. You can have multiple tabs and go to other places. Now, one thing to note here, this is a full browser and it's embedded as an event in GUI for CLI. It's a native event inside the language. Now, one thing here to note is you see this red desktop icon, the red G, it has a little cross on it. That means there was an error. We open the output window, left click and open it. And we see that there was an error. It tells you the time so you know when it happened, because sometimes you don't notice the errors and you don't know if it's a recent one or an old one. And where it happened, at what line it happened. It says there is no current GUI of this type. We hadn't opened a tab yet. That's why. Sometimes you may get a lot of errors. You don't have to pay attention to every one because sometimes there's just notifications or it's being a drama queen for some reason. But it's useful to see them. There's also debug. We can debug if we do this, for example, we can set debug on or off like this, and then everything that GUI for CLI does, for example, going to reloading this page. Okay, let's close this and stop the debug. And this is what it did when we click that button. And you can go through and see. There's a easier way to go through it with a step debugger. We'll discuss this on another video, but just to show you, you put analyze debug output here, and you can go through the debug here, and it shows you here where you are, like this, for example, and you can go through it. We'll see this in another video. So that's it, I guess, and I hope you find GUI for CLI useful and you make a lot of GUIs.